Mr. Häring, first and foremost, I would like to thank you personally and on behalf of the Center of Patristic Studies, which is known in Greece as හෙστία Πατερικῶν Μελετῶν, for making time today for this interview. I feel really honored to be here. Admittedly, your book entitled The Abolition of Caste and Its Consequences has inspired thousands of people. It's now being translated into Greek, and it's really an absolute pleasure and privilege to be here with you today.
It is my honor. Thank you very much for having me.
Mr. Häring, there is a tendency these days to abolish anything that relates humanity to its roots, values, or institutes and customs of civil life in general. I have therefore really enjoyed your opening statement, which consists of two parts. Only caste is real, which is the very essence of your work. And then you carry on and you say, this is not about the dogma of those feeling nostalgic about the past who refuse to adopt into modern times. This being the very essence and inspiration of your book, would you like to talk a little bit about it in your own words?
Yes, with pleasure. I see the money system as a mirror image of society. The way money is organized mirrors in a smoky way. It also hides it, but it also mirrors it, how society is organized. Money is a token for what we get from society, for what we do or for what we are. And the question is who makes the money, who puts it into circulation, for whose benefit. And once it is in circulation and we get it, what can we do with it? Is it our decision what we do with it? Or is the ultimate decision what we can buy with some central authority that has the final say of what can be done and what can't? So if society changes, then the money system will change. But it also goes the other way around, and that's what I'm concerned with. If you change the money system, if, for example, you make it more centralized and you put power at the top, then you'll get a different society. You get more power at the top and you will take power away from the individual. And that's what I see happening. That also has some... you can see it in some phenomena like money is always getting less real and at the same time more scalable. Like when you had gold, you had to transport gold and you could touch it, and that is not so scalable. Similar with cash, although it's already a little more abstract, but cash comes in a suitcase and things like that. So you could hardly imagine if you still paid CEOs in cash or hedge fund managers, it just couldn't happen that one single hedge fund manager makes 5 billion a year. It just can't happen. But with money being so ephemeral now and fleeting, that it's just a stroke of a computer key, then you can do anything. You can write in that book or type in your computer, such and so now has 5 billion more and he has 5 billion more. So that's what's happening if money loses its real consistency and becomes some fleeting entity.
There is a number of ostensible arguments on the adoption of logistic, or we call it plastic money, potentially replacing totally real money in the future. Out of those arguments, I suppose the most popular, and more specifically in Greece, is that of crack on tax evasion. Are you a believer of this?
There is certainly a basis for it. That's why it's used. But if we step back a bit, there are various of these arguments that change over time and in different places. The agenda is the same all over the world. They want to do away with cash, but in developing countries they use the argument of financial inclusion. It's ostensibly good for the poor. They've been using the argument of monetary policy, that cash is in the way of that. In Greece they're using tax avoidance and money laundering. recently, terrorism is a favorite argument, that you combat terrorism by doing away with cash, although it's silly. So this changing the arguments around in time and place for the same agenda sort of makes you suspicious already. And as regards tax evasion and money laundering, the Lagarde list wasn't a matter of cash. It was a matter of, do you want to go after them? And that's symptomatic that cash is something to evade taxes for the small people, and it's not good. But if that's your main thing, that you go after the small people and not after those who do it at a large scale, and they don't need cash for that, then you're getting totally out of proportion, and the damage to freedom, to individual freedom, is so much that it's out of proportion to what you can achieve by getting rid of cash.
In your book, you provide a thorough analysis on the differences between logistic money and real money. For a person of limited financial or banking background, what kind of strong message you could pass on the differences?
Well, cash is money that the government issues through the central bank. So the government is behind that money, and it has the legal status of being legal tender. Everybody has to accept it, at least in principle. And bank money, logistical money as you call it, or book money, how it's also called, digital money, is nothing but a claim on cash. So the bank promises you that they will give you cash for the money that you have at the bank. You don't have money there, the bank owes you cash. And because the custom is that you can pass this along, and instead of the bank owing the money to you, I can pay with it and give it to my neighbor, and then the bank or a bank owes the money to them. Because that's the arrangement, and the government supports it. That's why this debt of the bank becomes something like money. But ultimately it's just a claim on cash. So if you do away with cash, then that claim that we have against the bank, that they have to pay something for what they put out, that goes away. And that's great for the banks. They can issue money, but they don't have to give anything back for it. That's what they would like.
Thank you. What I also found rather scary is in fact two specific concepts, that of the bank run and that of the bail-in. So starting with a bank run, if I understand it correctly, the fear of the banks is that when at a certain moment, if at a certain moment of time, a lot of depositors, or potentially all of them, queue and go and request their money, which is cash, then the bank is scared of that because they would fail to provide the cash back to the depositors. Which sounds, for an average person with little banking background, it sounds very strange. So the banks don't have any money?
Yeah, the banks... let's talk about how the banks make money. If they give me credit, what they do is they take my account, or they open an account for me, and they use their keyboard and say 100,000 euros, Norbert Häring, and then I have 100,000 euros in my account and can pay with that and all that, and can get cash out of it. But so that's how they make money. But it's a claim on cash. I have to pay it back in the long term with interest, and they have to give it to me in cash if I want it. But they rely on very few people wanting their money in cash, because cash is something that they can't make themselves. Cash is government money, and cash they have to get by by giving something, some deposits to the government, something with value, so that they can create themselves, so they can run out of cash. And so they rely on us not wanting it in large quantities, which we usually don't, because we can just pay with the bank money and we don't need it. But if we don't trust the bank anymore, then we say, oops, better take our cash out while we have it. And once that happens, and the first people do that, and people see the line forming, then everybody runs, and then they don't have the cash anymore, because they put much more bank money in circulation than they can actually serve by handing out cash.
Talking about trusting the bank and potentially moving to the second scary concept of the bail-in. So it appears to me that depositors are financing the bank instead of the bank having some tangible assets like gold to back up their financial condition, or instead of the government being able to secure the depositors.
Yeah, the thing is, we were financing the banks all along with the money we had at the bank, and the government was securing them. So as taxpayers, we paid for their failures or for keeping them afloat, and that has bankrupted some governments like the Greek, and stressed the public finances of many others, so they don't have the money anymore. If that happens again, which is why they made the rules that in the futures creditors have to pay first before the government will help a bank. And creditors, that's mostly us with money at the bank. So it means that that it becomes the rule that we have to give up our money if the bank is in trouble, which is making the problem of bank runs much worse, because now we have even more reason to run to the bank, because we can't trust that the government will help and that we'll get our money. So bank run problem is much worse now, and that means that they have to get rid of cash so that the bank run can't happen anymore. It's already very difficult to actually get your money, even if the bank promises it. But if you try and take 10 or 15,000 euros from the bank, even if you have it there, it's not easy, at least not quickly.
I have a friend in Greece who actually tried to purchase a new washing machine. The cost of the washing machine was 600 euros, and now with the limitations we have for commercial spending, the limit is, the allowance is 500. And he's refusing to get to the credit card system or to any kind of electronic form and means. And other countries as well actually have a slightly different limit, but they still have that limit. So maybe a naive question, but isn't that illegal? And if it is illegal, who can press charges against, and to whom? To the government? To the banking sector?
Well, I'm actually pressing charges. I have done that in Germany. I have refused to pay my dues to the public broadcasting corporation in anything but cash, and they say we're not taking cash, so I've gone to the court. I've lost in the first level, so now I'm at the second level, but there is a law in Germany, a federal law, that says that euro banknotes are the only legal tender. So to my understanding, that means that at least the public, because I cannot choose to go to some other public service provider like I can do in a store, the public has to accept it. And the same is true on the European level. There's Article 128 of the European contract, which is primary European law, that says that euro banknotes are legal tender. And I do not see how a government of a country can prohibit its citizen to pay with the European legal tender. They simply don't have the right to do that. So I think you're right, it's illegal. But on the other hand, the EU Commission, who's the guardian of the contract, and the European Central Bank, who's the guardian of the money. Draghi signs the bills that are outlawed here. They are both behind that drive. They are the ones who form the Troika and who have told the Greek government to do all this against cash. So the guardians of the money and of the contracts have no interest in guarding it, so you have to go to the courts. And so far, in Germany at least, the courts have proven very understanding of what the government wants and not so much of the citizens, but one has to try. I think the law is very clear on that.
Thank you. I also did enjoy your personal experiment where you tried to get a cash advance from your bank for 15,000 euros with the excuse of buying a new car. Maybe you would like to briefly share this experience with us?
Yeah. First of all, the money was on my account, and it's an account that that promises that you get your money daily. So by rights, I can give notice any time and get it on the same day, but that's not what happened. What I did was, first I tried to find out from my bank in writing, and by going there and asking, how much money can I get without giving notice? They wouldn't say. So that's and I also asked the bank association on what the rules are. They wouldn't say. So that's when I tried and I say, okay, probably 15,000 is too much, I'll try that. And I went there and they said, no, you can't have so much. It was Wednesday, come back on Monday and then you can have it. They said they don't have it there, which is ridiculous. In the middle of Frankfurt, they don't have 15,000 euros and they take 3 days. That's of course not the reason, but that's what they said. But knowing that I have a right to get it, I just stayed there and argued and didn't go away. They would have sent me, a normal person would have gone away 4 times. And so eventually, after making a couple of calls, they told me to sit down, and they photocopied my passport, and they made a lot of phone calls to the police and other places, had me sit there for 15 minutes so that the police could come if they wanted. And then after 15 minutes, I finally got the money, which they of course had there. So what's behind it is anti-money laundering rules, which are a very effective device to push back cash, because you can just argue anything and do anything. If you say cash is only used by money launderers, then you can just change everything. And even though the bank promises to give you the money anytime, they don't do it anymore because of money laundering rules. And it's extremely undemocratic and has nothing to do with rule of law anymore, because I find they're not allowed to tell you, like there's a law that tells you that the bank is not allowed to tell you that you're suspicious. So you can very easily get on a list, on a blacklist, where they don't do any business with you anymore, where they cancel your account and things like that. And they're not even allowed to tell you what's going on. So you have no chance to defend yourself. You have no chance to say, listen, I got this cash because of that, and it may look funny, but I have good reasons. No chance, because if you say, I can explain, they're going to say, no, there's no problem, it's just for another reason. So it's very easy to become suspicious, but impossible to defend yourself. And I find that outrageous. And that can happen just for withdrawing 1,000 euro every once in a while. You can have your account cancelled.
Which I think gives me the best introduction for my next question. If we were to end up with total abolition of cash, and one of the things you emphasize in your book is that cash assures the last bits of privacy that are left to us. And also, if cash is abolished, a real-time holistic surveillance system will inevitably become effective to all of us. So it looks like we would experience a kind of a big brother Orwellistic society. If cash was to be abolished, how would the world, how would society look 20 years from now?
Well, it depends on who grabs that power that brings, and I can't forecast that, but that its immense power is clear. Just imagine that if there's no cash, then it's all digital money, and everything that's being digitalized, we've learned that everything that happens digitally is being stored, recorded, and surveyed, and the capacities for surveillance are huge, and you don't even have to survey it in real time. People say, I don't care if somebody notices what I'm buying, and it's true for most of the people, but just imagine that everything what they ever spent on what magazine they bought, what kind of sexual preferences they have, what their health is, whether they have a fiancé at the side or something. Everything is in your payment data, and everything is being stored, and there are people in institutions who can look into this, and that means that whoever can look into this has any power, because anybody who gets any powerful, even if it's a young person now who says I don't care, in 30 years he might be the CEO of a big company or an important politician, and somebody who has the power can look into everything he ever spent money on in all his life. So it's clear that he can be blackmailed, and they can force him down if he doesn't behave in a way that they like. So we will be living in a society where those who have the key to these things have all the power. So it all depends on whether that is a benevolent power who has it, then it's okay, but what gives us trust that will always be the case? And as soon as it's a ruthless institution or group or person who grabs it, they will never give it away anymore. So the likelihood is that eventually this power will end up with the most ruthless people in organizations who are really willing to use it to their advantage and to use it ruthlessly. And that's the kind of situation we'll be in eventually as a society, that everybody knows that they can be blackmailed and that nobody will dare to stick their head out and do anything brave anymore.
Which is really the bottom line and the very essence or target, if you will, of abolishing cash.
Yeah, I'm not saying that that won't happen if we keep cash and that it's all about cash, but it's really perfecting it, because cash gives you a last chance to do certain things without anybody recording it, because if you don't want to and you don't have cameras everywhere yet, you can buy stuff, you can go to the kiosk and buy a certain magazine without anybody knowing that you did it, or you can give it to a certain person without anybody knowing that you did it, and that won't be possible anymore.
If you were to give in one sentence advice to the Greek people, and not only, by the way, what should they do, or what can they do in order to prevent the abolition of caste? And maybe you would like to turn into the camera and make that statement as an epilogue to our interview today.
Mein Rat für alle Griechen und alle, die Bargeld bewahren wollen, wäre: Nutzen Sie das Bargeld so viel, wie Sie es noch können, dann wird es schwieriger, es abzuschaffen, und versuchen Sie, Ihre Rechte vor Gericht durchzusetzen, denn die Rechtslage ist eindeutig.
Dankeschön.
Vielen Dank.
Dankeschön.
Ich danke Ihnen.